Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me this evening for this introductory webinar explaining our partnership with Ambition Institute, but also looking at the early career framework and the options open to you as schools. I'm going to try very hard not to talk for too long this evening. I think probably perhaps just over half an hour, which should leave time for questions without taking up too much of your evening. What I would ask is if you could put questions using the Q&A function. So at the bottom of the screen, you should see something that says Q&A. And if you post questions in there rather than in the chat, it just makes it much easier for me to address them at the end of the webinar, because in the chat, once other people start contributing, they get lost in the stream. So I will only be going to the Q&A at the end to address any questions that you may have, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those questions. So my name's Sally Stanton. I'm Director of Education at Advantage Schools. I've been leading for the last couple of years on the early career framework in the schools in our trust, and then in the partnership that we have with Ambition Institute to deliver the early career framework within our local area. So thank you very much for joining. What you can expect me to go through this evening is, first of all, I will talk a little bit about your options. So some of you, I think, have perhaps joined because you have an early career teacher joining you for the first time in September. So I will talk a little about what options are available to you. I will then talk specifically about the Ambition Institute Early Career Teacher Programme, how that's structured, how it works, and then I'll move on to talk about how the partnership between us as Advantage Schools and Ambition Institute works in terms of what we deliver locally, who we are as well, so you'll get a sense of who's on our team, and then I'll share with you some testimonials from mentors, early career teachers and induction coordinators that have participated with us this year. I'll then do a short section on assessment, and then I'll finish off really with just some top tips for whatever option you go down, ways that you can consider to make it work best in your school, and then finally next steps if you are interested in working with us next year. So in terms of the options that are open to you, you are probably aware by now that the ECF is a statutory entitlement to the training and support that ECTs should be offered by their schools. And there are three ways that you can choose to deliver that. So you can choose to deliver that support, that training yourself, and you can do that either using DFE endorsed materials that are freely available online, or you can take complete ownership and design and deliver your own training program. So there is a third option then that you can actually use a funded program, and that would be delivered by one of the 6 Department for Education designated providers. So you've got option A, the program delivered in partnership with a lead provider. Option B, use free materials to deliver yourself, or option C, completely go it alone. Now, in terms of the lead providers, these national providers, then all of them then work with local delivery partners, because that enables them to deliver the live aspects of the training package for you in a geographically convenient way, but also kind of in a contextually relevant way. So in effect, you can think of those local partners as being a bridge between the big national delivery provider and your school. So at Advantage Schools, we are the local delivery providers for one of the national providers, and that national provider is Ambition Institute. So if you were interested in going for option A, this fully funded program, this fully resourced and delivered package of training, we can act as the local delivery partners for Ambition Institute if they were the delivery partner of your choice. So as I mentioned, the early career framework is an entitlement. So it's an entitlement to training and support for early career teachers and actually for mentors. So whichever provider you use, if you chose to go with one of the national providers, the funding works in the same way. So it's a 10% reduction in timetable for ECTs in year 1, a 5% reduction in year 2, 20 hours of mentoring time in year 2 of induction, the assumption being that NQTs were already getting mentoring time in year 1. So the new thing is the 20 hours in year 2, and the full package of resourced and delivered training, and also funding for 36 hours of mentor time off timetable over the 2 years. Now, what you can see on screen in terms of the national programs, the number of hours that have to be delivered, those requirements are specified by the Department for Education. So they have told all of the national delivery partners, you must provide 23 hours for the early career teachers to access self-study materials asynchronously. You must provide 30 hours of live training, and 18 of those hours need to be face-to-face. You must make sure that the mentors are supported to give mentoring sessions for the full 59 hours over the 2 years. And then you've got the training and support for mentors, and that's 36 hours, 9 hours of which are face-to-face. And obviously that's spread over the length of time that they would be mentoring the early career teacher. And just to add that once mentors have gone through that training program, they do not then have to repeat it when they mentor again in the future. So they are then considered to have completed their training. They would not be eligible for funding for that training in the future. What you will see then is different between the national providers is how they have divided up that time and how they plan to deliver those requirements. So, for example, we, as delivery partners with Ambition Institute, we have hour-long twilight training sessions which are delivered online, because we think those kind of short training sessions, actually delivering online is much more convenient for people. It means that you don't have to arrange cover to let people out of school early so they can get to a venue. They can just log on at the end of the school day and they can do that hour. And the face-to-face sessions, again, kind of for the purposes of efficiency, we run those as day-long conferences. So that means that there's one day where, rather than it being sort of cut down into smaller chunks, where obviously you're again adding travel time onto that release time. So again, that's kind of set up the way that it's been planned by Ambition to hopefully reduce some of the impact on actually running schools and the impact on the classroom. It is definitely worth having a look at how different providers have organised the time, because some are having shorter face-to-face sessions, some are having slightly longer online sessions. So I would recommend kind of having a look at how that's been divided up and what would work best for your school. Regardless of who you work with, all of those programmes have been fully quality assured. They're compliant with the EEF, the DFE content team, ministers have QA'd them, and they are all subject to inspection from Ofsted. So you know that you've got that confidence that there's a standard that must be achieved. But as I said, the lead providers will have slightly different ways of delivering the programmes that they've written. So this is just kind of an at-a-glance indication of the input that we're talking about with the Ambition Institute programme structure. So what isn't on here is the weekly self-study that ECTs will have access to. Now that's something that they access online, and they do that at a time that suits them. They have about an hour-long self-study. It will be a research summary. There'll be a video to exemplify what they've read, and there'll be self-assessment quizzes involved in that. And I will kind of talk you through a little bit more about that later. What you see on screen here is the live face-to-face delivery. And so just to help you understand some of the language here, where you can see, for example, clinics. So you can see early career teacher clinic 1, clinic 2 and clinic 3 in year 1. Now, clinics, they're the short twilight sessions. So we deliver those online. In each session, there are around 10 to 15 early career teachers or mentors, because the mentors also have some clinics as well. And we do things like there would be some input, there would be breakout rooms with smaller groups of early career teachers then reflecting on their practice. They would then come back and reflect with the larger group. So it's very facilitated and focused group discussion around what the early career teachers are learning. You'll also see on here that there are the conferences. So the conferences are those full day, face-to-face, and that's to really allow us to get into some much more developed training, a bit of workshopping, and also to provide those networking opportunities for early career teachers and mentors. And then where you can see where it says coach on coach, this is coaching on coaching, and this is actually one-to-one support for mentors in developing their skills as mentors and coaches. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then obviously, in addition to this, your early career teachers will have those weekly sessions with their mentor throughout year 1, and then that drops to fortnightly mentoring sessions in year 2. So I'm going to talk a little bit more now about the Ambition Institute programme. Why partner with Ambition Institute, and why we particularly as delivery partners are working with Ambition Institute. So you may have heard already of Ambition Institute. They design and they deliver professional development for educators at every stage of their careers. And they really pride themselves on outstanding quality of the people on their design teams and therefore the programs that they put together. They are always informed by the latest research and they build on the kind of the experience and the work of really great teachers and school leaders. So a couple of years ago, I was in the same position as you. I was thinking about, just for the teachers in our schools, which provider did I want to work with? I had meetings with a few different providers or went to some of the webinars that they were running. I compared different curricular offers. I looked at different program structures. And what I did, and what I would advise you to do, is I really thought carefully about what aligns with our visions and values. Now, Ambition Institute have a very clear vision that they think that every single child deserves an excellent teacher in front of them, that disadvantaged pupils in particular deserve really great provision so that those pupils can make great progress, and they see developing teachers and school leaders as really key to enabling that to happen. As a trust, we talk about all children being capable of achieving extraordinary things if we can provide the right circumstances for them. And part of those great circumstances are making sure that they have great teachers in front of them. And I think, not all schools would necessarily feel that they're situated in a deprived area, but all schools have pupils in them that face barriers to learning. And if we can get it right for those pupils through really exceptional teaching, through teacher development, then it will work for all pupils. So that alignment was there for me with that kind of goal that Ambition Institute have. We also, as a trust, have a really significant focus on curricular thought and also the science of learning. So what cognitive science tells us about how pupils can best learn. Now, that's all kind of built into the early career framework anyway. But what I could really see when I looked at the Ambition programme and planning was that they hadn't just included it in kind of what they taught the teachers, but as it was delivered, it walked the walk as well as talking the talk. So I could see from the design of their curriculum that they had thought really carefully about how to sequence things, when to go back to core ideas, when to try to develop and deepen those early career teachers' understanding of things that they'd previously perhaps been introduced to. And again, because Ambition Institute also design the National Professional Qualifications, the new suite, which we are also involved in delivering, I can also very clearly see how there's a sense of the early career framework and the support for coaches really laying the foundations for that ongoing professional development. So your mentors are going to be some of your best teachers and your teachers that can really develop the practice of others. And you can see that coming through in kind of the leadership and the specialist national professional qualifications around teacher development. So you get to see kind of those strong links that build on the content covered in the early career teacher programme. And because we've got facilitators that facilitate both, we're also able to really draw that out and maximise on it. So what you can see kind of on screen here is screenshots from the portal where all of the materials and all of the asynchronous learning that early career teachers and mentors can access is available for their self-study. So this is through an online program called StepLab, which again you may be familiar with, and what it does is it takes them through that very carefully structured curriculum that they have written to make sure it covers all parts of the early career framework. So they have access to training videos, reading material, the quizzes, but there's also links to further reading for those early career teachers who really want to take their study further, who are really keen to really develop their thinking about some of these really kind of meaty issues around how children learn and how we can best promote pupil learning. The platform also has a function in terms of enabling you as a school leader to track engagement with the self-study. So it's a really powerful tool for you in terms of building a culture of that ongoing professional development in your school. It's something that you can access so that you're able to see what your early career teachers are reading about, are looking at, and maybe have conversations with them. And we've certainly, as schools in our trust, but also some of the schools we're working with, are then actually drawing on that content and bringing it into whole school professional development, because the quality of it is good and not necessarily all teachers have actually seen some of this content before. In addition to this, you do also get regular progress reports from Ambition Institute and from us at Advantage Schools, so that you know exactly how your mentors and early career teachers are progressing through the programme, so that if somebody's a bit stuck, if they're struggling something, it's flagged up to you very early so that you can talk to them about it. And we always say kind of we can get in touch and we can support early career teachers, we can support mentors if they're finding it a bit difficult, but we will always work with the school first, because you may have some context. If someone's got stuck somewhere, you may know something really significant, like oh, they just had a really bad week last week, so we gave them a bit of a break, or something's happening, you know, obviously this year we had lots of absence because of COVID, which sometimes meant that people were perhaps a little bit behind for a few weeks. So we would always work with you first, rather than kind of clumsily coming in to perhaps chase people up if that's not the appropriate thing to do. So we'll always work with you to find out what the best approach is. Another reason that I was really keen and really pleased that we partnered with Ambition Institute is because of the very strong focus on instructional coaching within the programme. It really is at the heart of their early career teacher programme. Now, I feel as if instructional coaching is becoming a little bit of a buzzword in education. But it is a departure from the type of mentoring that a lot of mentors we are working with in our schools and in other schools were used to doing. They were used to perhaps a less structured form of mentoring, or perhaps more of a mentee-led form of mentoring. So Ambition Institute have chosen to really emphasise the importance and training for mentors around instructional coaching, because they believe it provides the best opportunity for early career teachers and mentors to embed their learning and to have the best possible impact on their classroom practice. I see instructional coaching as being there to provide the link between the theory that the early career teachers are being exposed to in their self-study and then the practice that they do in the classroom. And what it does is it positions the experienced mentor as a person who's just a little bit further along that journey towards expertise. So I personally don't think we suddenly wake up one day and we're an expert in something. I think it's a continuum, but we're wanting to move our early career teachers from the feeling of being more novice to them being more expert in their practice. And hopefully they're working with a mentor who has that more expertise than them, and they're going to help that early career teacher really break down and see what's effective and good about their practice, and see how to take it to the next level to move them along that continuum towards expertise. Now, there's evidence to support instructional coaching as a good form of teacher development. I'm just going to put something on the screen and I'll give you a moment to read it. And this was from a review of evidence regarding different types of effective CPD, and this is in the conclusion from Dr. Sam Sims. Now, actually, prior to the launch of the early career framework, we'd really been looking at the power of instructional coaching and wanted it to be part of the professional development that our teachers were entitled to across our school. So for me as well, I felt this was a great opportunity for us to train mentors and really support mentors to be very good instructional coaches, with the view to actually long term they can work with other members of staff that aren't necessarily early career teachers. And you know, I know there are schools where everybody is entitled to regular instructional coaching from another teacher, including the head teacher, and that's a culture that I think is very positive. So building the skill set of lots of teachers as mentors and giving them the training to really enable them to do this is a very powerful school improvement tool from my perspective. So when you're thinking about kind of the choice that you go for, do consider that you aren't just developing your early career teachers, you really are developing your mentors too, by ensuring they've got access to training and support in this really impactful form of professional development. And that's got huge potential across the school as well, kind of the ripple effect where you've got people talking about what they're learning, you've got people skilled as coaches, you've got early career teachers who can reflect with their colleagues about some of the things they're learning, and hopefully creating the right culture and the right buzz around the professional development they're having means that you can see a strong impact much more widely than just the early career teacher programme. So in terms of how the coaching works, I'm just going to play this whilst I talk so you can kind of, it's a coaching simulator you can see on screen now. because the coaching is fully scaffolded by that Step Lab program. So there are suggestions of thousands of action steps. So with instructional coaching, what you're doing is you are very precisely giving the early career teacher a very small, granular change to their practice, that the implementation of that will make a small change in their practice to improve their teaching. The idea being that over time, week after week of layering on these very small changes, we can make big changes and big improvements. But it's bite-sized, it's processable by the early career teacher. It's something that they can practice with their coach, with their mentor, so that they can be really confident when they're taking it into the classroom. So the action steps are linked to the area of the early career framework that the teacher is currently learning about, so that you've got that cohesion to the whole programme. But there is also flexibility within there, that the mentor can slightly adjust the step, but also you have a choice of lots of steps so that you can pick the one that's most appropriate for your classroom teacher. Now, so therefore, the focus of those weekly coaching sessions is really closely aligned to the self-study that the early career teacher is undertaking. The mentor sets the target for the early career teacher. They coach them through it. So the mentor, will either provide a model for the early career teacher, or they will select a video model from the Step Lab program. They will watch that together. They'll analyse the gap between how the early career teacher currently works and what the model looks like, so that the early career teacher is really being supported to think about, what is it, what's happening here, what are the principles, why is this teacher doing this, why is it effective, what can I do to improve my practice? And then the coach will support them to actually practice that step. So as I said, there's a choice of action steps. There's a choice of videos that go with the action steps on Step Lab, but also this year, in response to feedback, Step Lab are adding more video exemplification from different contexts. So for example, they've been asked specifically to increase the number of videos for early years practitioners, and they're also looking at including more specific support for teachers that work in specialist provision. So, oh no, sorry, I thought I'd gone too far then, but I hadn't. So just before I move on to our part, I'll just let you read this testimony from a different trust from us. So moving on now from the Ambition Institute programme to how it works with us and how we as partners work with Ambition Institute to deliver to you as a school. So why would you partner with Advantage Schools? Well, we've actually been delivering the programme for 2 years now, because we were involved in the early rollout in 2020. And that means that we've had quite a lot of quality assurance in place already, because we had quality assurance through the early rollout, and we also had quality assurance this year as well of our delivery. So for me, that kind of means that you can be confident that we're delivering things as we should, that Ambition Institute are happy with us as delivery partners. We're also very responsive to feedback from participants. So because we have a very small cohort, we work at the moment with around 23 schools, and we have we've committed that we will take kind of no more than 45 early career teachers each year, because we feel that enables us to have quite a personal relationship with the schools that we're working with. It helps us understand their context so that we can be a bit more adaptive. And it means that people have kind of a direct route to giving us feedback. So although we do gather feedback through anonymous surveys, we also just get a great deal through the email contact we have. We say, well, this isn't quite working for us. Like, can you explain how to do it? Or can you think about a different way? And from that, we've been able to make some changes to some of our approaches, really around sort of the systems that we use. So the systems that we use for booking onto clinics, making them as simple as possible for participants. The times that we offer clinics, we've taken feedback on what's most useful. And so because it's a smaller group, it means that it's a little bit easier for us to manage some of that. And in terms of the size of the cohort we're aiming for, it's a very small cohort compared to some of the much larger cohorts that teaching school hubs and bigger trusts deliver to. But we have really tried to overstaff it in terms of our delivery team. So the pictures you can see on screen are all of our, they're called visiting fellows. They're basically the facilitators for the clinics and the conferences. And we did that because we wanted to make sure we had lots of quality to call on. But we also wanted to make sure we had flexibility. So we wanted to make sure we had a good balance of primary and secondary expertise in our team. We wanted to make sure we had different subjects. So we've got English specialisms, maths specialisms, we've got science specialisms, but we've also got people who teach practical subjects included as well. And then also within that team, we have Belinda Goodship and Sarah Chanter, and they both actually in their schools, they do what many of you will be doing. They are the induction coordinators in their schools. So they're excellently placed as well to offer that support that isn't part of the actual early career framework package that is offered by the DFE. That kind of support and advice around managing the programme in your schools, creating the right culture so that it works really well, giving you advice on how to manage some aspects of the assessment process alongside the early career framework, because those two things are separate now. And in terms of what actually we deliver, so we deliver the clinics and the conferences. And it isn't just a case of the national delivery providers have kind of just taken the early career framework and they just work through week by week a different aspect of it. Ambition Institute have got a very detailed curriculum document where they've kind of mapped out what the strands are from the early career framework that they're following, but they're clustered together and they're grouped into different topic areas, and then teachers will revisit them in different topic areas over time. So I'll give you a moment just to process what's on the screen in terms of what the different clinics and conferences focus on for ECTs and mentors. And in terms of the one-to-one coaching on coaching, so as part of the package that mentors are entitled to within their training, we offer a one-to-one session. So it's one of our visiting fellows and a mentor, one-to-one. It's done online, so it's booked at a time that's convenient for the mentor. And we provide bespoke support for them on their coaching. What we do is we look at their current coaching practice, we link it to the current strand that their early career teacher is learning about, and then we run a kind of a practice coaching session with them, and then we give them feedback, and then we support them to develop their practice as coaches. And your mentors would be entitled to 3 of those sessions over the course of their training. And what we find is that it's one of the things that coaches don't always book onto immediately. So they need a bit of encouragement from the induction coordinators to book onto it. I think perhaps because, you know, doing that kind of one-to-one with someone you don't know perhaps feels a bit strange, a bit daunting. But consistently, once people have done it, we find that they're always very keen to book onto their other 2 slots that they've got, and it's often the thing that we get the most positive feedback about. And I think it's because it really gets them, it's that one-to-one, it's completely bespoke, it's completely focused on how are they doing right now. It's not generic, it's what's happening between you and your early career teacher. Okay, let's explore how you can support your early career teacher even better. And actually it tends to be kind of the experienced and confident coaches that can really get a lot out of that, because they're really, you know, they will give us challenges and kind of say, well, you know, actually everything's going really well, we're getting through the program very well, how do I provide that extra challenge for my early career teacher? And that's when we've kind of really been able to look in detail at some of the program materials and think, okay, let's think together about how you're going to keep developing this teacher who seems to be doing very well on the program, because essentially they are still within their first couple of years of teaching. And normally that's when kind of we're really getting somewhere with those coaches, and then those coaches are able to go back and increase that challenge for their early career teacher. But also for any coaches, obviously, that are new to the whole instructional coaching idea, it's really invaluable because it gives them that model of this is what an instructional coaching session looks like, and gives them a chance to experience it. And some coaches as well just say, it was really nice just to get the kind of feedback to let me know that I was doing it right. Like it was reassuring because it was a little bit different from the way I'd coached before. So just knowing that I was on the right lines made me feel more confident moving forwards. So outside of the funded package, we think it's very important that as delivery partners that we run some induction lead network meetings. So we try to run these termly, but obviously if there's lots of things coming up that is quite confusing, or if we're getting lots of emails perhaps from induction coordinators with questions about things, we might run an additional network meeting just to address it. They're completely optional. It's a chance to share good practice as well. So it's not a training session, it is a network meeting where we come together. We will look at some ideas about how can we really create a culture where our early career teachers are enthusiastic about their professional development. How can we create a culture where it's shared with other members of the teaching team? We might have a particular focus on supporting engagement and using StepLab effectively. So there will be kind of little bits of sharing of best practice. It doesn't necessarily have to be led by us either. There are plenty of really great induction coordinators in our whole school network that we want to hear from in those network meetings too. So that's kind of an additional level of support that we include within our partnership, just to provide that sort of reassurance and that ongoing networking throughout the time that you have early career teachers and mentors in the school. And they're always recorded, so that even if you can't attend them, you've got the option to maybe look back, and we send out any resources that were shared afterwards too, so that people that perhaps can't come to the meetings but would still like to review the resources or the PowerPoints have the opportunity to do that. So as I said, because we're working with a really small cohort, we hope we can get to know you very well, and that really helps us provide a bespoke service. And we encourage any schools that are working with us to share information with us about your context, so we can think about what's going to work best in terms of our relationship with you. We also, through any of the schools that work with us on the early career teacher programme, get access to our professional development offer for our staff in our trust. So the early career teachers, their mentors and members of your SLT will be able to come on any of the other courses that we run. So if you look on our website, there's something called the Advantage Schools Knowledge Exchange, or ASK. And we run kind of short courses of twilight sessions over 6 weeks. We run longer sessions over a full term. We've got a series of summer webinars coming up at the moment, just to kind of, again, share good practice. We have guest speakers or very structured training programs in things like senior leadership, middle leadership. And that's all available to you as well. And again, it's optional. It's just something that's there if you wanted to book on some of those additional courses. And actually, it's led for us to collaborate much more with some other schools. So one of the schools that joined us last year, and then they kind of actually chose that they wanted all of their teaching staff to come on one of our courses called about classroom practice, and another school actually asked us to design some bespoke professional development for them, and it just all came as an outcome of us working together and them liking our approach and feeling that they were very aligned with us. And we really do want to work with like-minded schools, so schools that are really passionate about the power of ongoing professional development. And we will work with you to see the early career framework as an opportunity to embed that positive culture around professional development in your schools, and to share best practice across schools and really be part of a community that is sharing lots of professional development. So I'm just going to move on now. I won't talk for a moment. I'll just scroll through just to share a few testimonials with you of early career teachers and mentors and school coordinators that we have been working with over the last year. So just a kind of short part on assessment. It's really important to recognise that whilst the ECF is presented around the teacher's standards for clarity, the ECF is not and should not be used as an assessment framework. So you want to ensure as much as you can that mentoring remains developmental. Your ECT should be able to expose things that they're needing to develop to their mentor so that they can coach them to get better. So those mentoring sessions therefore really do need to be decoupled from assessment, because obviously if we're assessing an early career teacher, we're immediately changing that focus to them demonstrating to us that they can do. And actually we want to be working where they're finding things more difficult. So for that reason, the early career framework hasn't been designed to be turned into kind of a tick box or a RAG assessment to track progress. Like, that's just not how it works. So it's really important to try and keep assessment separate from the delivery of the early career framework. And that's why the DFE advised that you have a different person mentoring from dealing with assessment in schools. Now, in reality, we know that especially in small schools and small primary schools, that's really difficult. And we have lots of people who are mentors and are dealing with assessment. But it's just important in your mind to kind of deal with these assessment observations is very different from the way you approach those weekly, very short kind of 10 minutes observation of practice to support those coaching sessions. So for assessment, you would be working with your chosen appropriate body, and you will be testing the teacher's performance against the teacher's standards. And the idea is that the early career framework, if teachers are learning the early career framework and they're putting that learning into their practice, the outcome of that will be that they're meeting those teachers' standards, rather than that because you've done that learning on the ECF, you have ticked a box. So you'll have 2 formal assessment points for your induction, one midway through and one at the end of the induction period. And then there should just be regular progress reviews just to check that progress is monitoring as it should be each term without there being a formal assessment. So assessment is carried out by your chosen appropriate body, and that could be your local authority, it could be a teaching school hub, or it could be national teacher accreditation. So just sort of to almost finish off with a little bit of advice. Now, kind of you might think, well, I would say this first one, wouldn't I? Which is to work with a national provider. But I'm not necessarily saying us, but I would advise whatever you decide. I think it's really much, I think it's a sensible choice to work with a national provider for a few reasons. Number one is workload. So like genuinely, the amount of work and time that has gone into the resources that are available online for your early career teacher and mentor, and all of the live clinics and things that we run, it's huge. And I think that expecting a member of staff in your school to have the capacity to produce something of similar quality would be asking an awful lot of them. The other thing is the expertise of the team. So like Ambition Institute have absolutely incredible people on their design team whose job it is all day, every day to think about evidence around great teaching practice, thinking about the work they do with schools and what's working in schools, and bringing that together to design some very, very good teacher development programs. And again, we've got wonderful people in our trust. But having access to that team and having them producing resources for you, I think is just an amazing opportunity. And having realistic expectations of staff, like really expecting them to have the time to read the amount of literature that staff at Ambition, for example, have time to read, isn't necessarily realistic. And in all honesty, we did consider right at the beginning going it alone, because we already had a training program that for our NQTs that was really developed, and we thought maybe we don't need to work with a national provider, maybe what we've got is good enough. And our CEO Stuart Locke was on the advisory panel that wrote the early career framework, so we knew that we were already very well aligned. But I then stepped back and thought, actually there's a curriculum here that's been purely designed, and plus the other aspect of it is working with a national provider. They're getting all of that feedback from the thousands of teachers across the country that are involved, and they're always using that to improve. And so that kind of really large scale as well helps them really develop the quality quickly in a way that you can't necessarily get that level of quantitative and qualitative feedback in a small school. The next thing I do is then think, okay, so once I've got my national provider, what's the best delivery partner for me? And I think you want to think about the right fit for your school. So what do you want to prioritise that on? It might be, are there schools that you already work with, have great relationships with, you want to network with them and go with the same provider as them? Are you led by geography? Is it because you want there to be delivery down the road from you? Is it that there's a particular wider professional development at one of the delivery partners that you're interested in? Or is it to do with kind of your alignment around the visions and values of a particular delivery partner? So think about what your priorities are and then think about the best fit there. And then really key, whoever you work with, is about getting leadership right in your school. So my experience is that where it lands very, very well, school leaders have acknowledged this is a change. So particularly for those of you that didn't have an early career teacher last year, like you need to be aware that this is different from NQT, and it isn't just NQT over 2 years. It's much more structured. There's much more of an expectation about that, engaging with developing yourself as a teacher and as a mentor. And we all know that change needs very careful implementation. So yes, absolutely being very positive about this. This is an amazing opportunity to develop staff, but ensuring that the support is there, ensuring that they've got that protected time in their week, and so that they can access that study, ensuring that their timetables are giving them the chance to actually work with their mentor. And that can be really tricky. And we've talked to lots of schools about ways around that. If perhaps non-contact time doesn't always line up as you'd want it to, there are ways you can work around it. But making sure that the leaders in the school are valuing this opportunity and are willing to have those conversations with their early career teachers and mentors so that they can actually do the job well. And that links to getting mentoring right. So thinking about who your mentors are. This is a really great opportunity to mentor some of your to develop some of your very strong staff. You want to be honest with them about the role. They will need to be spending time with their early career teacher really regularly, and they'll be really providing structured coaching for them. But that's an incredible skill to have, and is one that they can then take further if they wanted to move into developing teachers, teacher training, or if they wanted to be a school leader themselves. So honesty about the role, about the expectation of them, but also that, you know, you really want it to be the people who are enthusiastic and want to develop others, and they will get a lot out of it if they are the kind of people that will go into it really wanting to nurture that relationship. So finally, in terms of next steps, before I just see if there are any questions, if you wanted to work with us or you're just interested, I would take the time to go to our website. So if you go to advantageschools.co.uk, we've got a whole page on the early career framework. There's a much longer webinar giving advice for making it work well in your school. There's lots of information on there as well. There's lots of information, more detail about the course and the programme brochure on there too. You can contact me if you want any information. So my email address is on there, or actually on our website, there's also just a Google form that you can fill in, and we'll be able to get back to you in response to that. If you do want to work with us, everything goes through the Department for Education now. So you would register your early career teacher via the DFE portal, and then you would just need to let me know that you've done that, because when you register your early career teacher, you would just pick Ambition Institute as your chosen delivery partner. And then if you let me know either by email or through our website, through the Google form, that you want us to, we then say to Ambition, this school wants to work with us. And so then when the DFE say, send your school information to Ambition Institute, they can look and say, yep, that goes with the Advantage Schools partnership. So that enables everybody to link up, and then you'll get an email from the DFE saying, Ambition Institute and Advantage Schools have confirmed that they're happy to work with you. Do you want to go ahead? And you say yes. And then hopefully at that point, all the information that you gave the DFE gets shared with us, and we're able to complete your onboarding with our systems. And the other thing you just need to remember is to register with your chosen appropriate body. So that is me done with my kind of presentation part of things. So I'm just going to have a look now. It doesn't look as if we have any questions, which is very reassuring, because I assume that means that I've been completely clear and detailed in everything I've said. I'm very happy to kind of give it a few minutes, but I don't have any more input to give. It would be lovely to work with some of you, and thank you very much for coming this evening. Feel free to log off, but I'll stay for a couple of seconds just in case somebody's typing a question. I don't want to finish the meeting just as someone's typing, but thank you, and feel free to go. Good night.